I've got us right at 10:01 now, so I'm going to get us started. Once again, welcome to our virtual education event. Today we're here to talk a little bit about our 2024 policy agenda, why kinship programs are important, what we're looking for in 2024. Basically, how does kinship care help New York families? So stay tuned. If you've got questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We can address those at the end. Again, we have a pretty action-packed agenda today. And just to let everybody know, if you have to cut out early, we have these that are going to be recorded, so it will be available to you at the end of the presentation. So just our agenda very quickly. I'm going to give a welcome, introductions. We're going to have a legislative update. We're going to hear from Assemblymember Andrew Hevesy. And then
can you hear me now?
Yep, I'm going to ask that you just mute yourself until it's time for you to talk.
I'm just using my phone, not my laptop now. Sorry.
That's all right. I think we have one of our kinship caregivers hopping in. We're going to talk a little bit about the Kinship Legal Network, and then we're going to hear from local perspectives so that you can hear from some of our kinship caregivers and our kinship programs. So as I said, my name is Ray Glazer. I'm the director of the New York State Kinship Navigator program. I am also the co-chair of the Kin Care Coalition, along with my lovely colleague, Deb Fox from Family Enrichment Network, who we're going to hear from very shortly as well. I'm here just to give an overview of what we're looking at for our 2024 policy agenda, as well as to give you a flavor of what kinship care looks like across the state. So I'm going to make an attempt to pivot over to our YouTube video that we have, just a very short overview about what it looks like navigating kinship care after retirement. This is a PBS documentary that's been put together that gives a really strong overview of what kinship care looks like boots on the ground. So I'm going to share this. If you have some issues hearing it, somebody pipe in and let me know. We're going to give this a shot.
Life is much, much different than expected it to be moving into retirement. I expected that we would be traveling and sitting around on the beach, and instead I'm getting up at 6 o'clock to put a middle schooler on the bus and being there when the bus gets home, all those other things that parents of a young child would be doing. I expected when August came to stay with us that it would be for a very brief period of time while her parents were kind of getting their act together and able to take August again. And that didn't happen. We ended up with permanent custody of August. I have used the Kinship Navigator program a couple of times. There are some really nice learning opportunities.
A lot of the common issues that we are seeing our caregivers face is that a lot of them are grandparents who are battling some of those health issues as well as financial issues and housing issues. The process is kind of that people reach out and they say, hey, I'm a kinship caregiver. This is where I'm living. This is the needs that I have. And the Kinship Navigator will reach out to us and let us know that there's a need in our area.
A lot of times these adults, they're taking on the custody through family court, even informally, but nobody's told them about their DSS services that they can get. If you're considering kinship care, I want you to know you're not alone.
I find my grandchild really just a delightful person to have around, even on their most difficult days, and there are very many difficult days. There are also real joys and rewards to tackling this, and it's turned into my favorite relationship of all time.
Aging Together in New York is sponsored in part by Evie Senior Living, providing independent living, assisted living, and memory care options, and by the Albany Guardian Society, improving aging through it.
Okay, so as you can see, that's just a really powerful overview of what that looks like, boots on the ground, what some of these caregivers are looking for, what they're needing, and how the Kinship Navigator program and how these kinship care programs can help. We're going to hear a little bit more about that today from folks live on the call, but that was just a really quick 2-minute overview of why these programs are important. So one of the things that I want to talk about a little bit is, first of all, what our ask is. And again, you're going to hear from several of our local folks more on what that looks like. So what we're asking for this year is we would like to make sure that in 2024, we still have September as Kinship Care Month. This is something that's been in accordance since 2014, where New York State has recognized September as Kinship Care Month, where we do that to honor kinship caregivers, those that are working with kinship care folks, and in general, just make sure that we have that month to celebrate as kinship care. This is something that doesn't have any dollars tied to it. It's something that we've asked for every year, and we find that it's really, really important that we can do that again for the 10th anniversary to honor those folks. The second thing that we're looking for is our Kinship Legal Network, which we're going to hear from Sarah Hedden from Center for Elder Law and Justice today. This is important because we are looking for caregivers to be able to have representation in family court where they are petitioning for custody and guardianship of children. As it happens right now, we have strong representation for parents and for children in family court, but they are not afforded the same opportunity for kinship caregivers. So we're asking that we fund for the Kinship Legal Network $8 million to provide a pilot project for kinship caregivers to be able to access kinship attorneys in family court. We're going to hear, as I said, a little bit more about that from Sarah Hedden. In tandem, this comes with our 2024 budget ask. Every year, we ask for money to be set aside for kinship care programs and for the New York State Kinship Navigator. The New York State Kinship Navigator is funded at $320,000 each year. We ask for that to be established at the same amount this year so that the Navigator can provide information, referral, and education to kinship families all across New York State, as well as work with professionals in the capacity of the Kin Care Coalition and assisting those kinship caregivers. And then we ask for the kinship programs to be funded at 2.238750 as they have every year. That is such an odd number to discuss, but it's the $338,000 for the local kinship programs that's earmarked as permanency resource centers, but allocated to kinship programs. And then the $1.9 million to be added from each house to fund those programs. And what that funds is it funds the 14 local kinship programs that currently serve 25 counties in New York State to provide on-site services for kinship caregivers, including case management, support groups, and assistance, getting financial assistance grants and legal permanency. You're going to be hearing from those folks as well. At this point in time, I'd like to turn it over to Assembly Member Andrew Hevesy to talk a little bit about the legislative update.
So good morning, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well. Just wanted to thank you for allowing me to participate today and tell you we are in the process of the budget season where we are about to come out. We are actually reviewing our one-house budget proposals. And as you know, the Assembly Majority has prioritized kinship care, and we're hoping to do that to the best of our ability with whatever financial constraints we have this year. We know there are a number of asks, including restoration of the money for the Kinship Navigator, so they can be restored and continue to provide services in all of the counties that you provide. I also have we have a request in for $8 million for funding for the Kinship Legal Network. Basically, we just want to make sure that parents and kin who are taking care of kids have as many resources as we can provide this year. I don't have any definitive answers on what's going into the Assembly One House budget, although we should know in the next couple of days. And then hopefully we will have a very nice outcome when we get done at the end of the budget at the end of March. So that's the update. I wish I had more to give you, except to say that we'll keep fighting for funds because we know how important the work is that you do, and we are absolutely grateful for that, and to be continued. But thank you for allowing me to participate today. I very much appreciate it.
Thank you, Assemblymember Hevesy. We appreciate your support as always, ongoing support for kinship families over the past decade and more, as well as your support with this new initiative, the Kinship Legal Network. It's much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
Okay, next we're going to hear from Sarah Hedden from Center for Elder Law and Justice to discuss one of our newer initiatives, which is the Kinship Legal Network. Over to you, Sarah.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm not able to turn on my video. I'm sorry. So Ray and Assemblyman Hevesy stole my thunder a little bit about this bill. A huge thank you to Hevesy and his staff for working with the Kinship Coalition. And we've been working on this for a couple of years. We just got our bill number, Assembly Bill A9222, to establish the Kin Care Legal Network and bring representation to kinship caregivers statewide. We've had a group for the last a couple of decades, a group of hardworking and passionate service providers and lawyers, the Kinship Legal Network, the Kinship Navigator, providing piecemeal services to kinship caregivers, and the Kinship Navigator and the coalition worked very hard in 2021 to define kinship caregiver in the law. So it's officially defined in social services law, giving them a lot more legal authority and clout. And this is the next step to bring representation to kinship caregivers. The $8 million ask will allow about 16 more counties to have representation. Right now, there's about 4 counties upstate, and the 5 boroughs of Western New York have small agencies that can provide representation. And as the caregivers on this call know, it is a scary process to be in, where everybody has representation except for the caregivers, who are doing their best to reduce trauma and keep kids with family. So you have this slide. I won't read it to you, but this is very exciting and really hoping to see it in the One House budget and the governor to sign off on it. If it doesn't pass this year, I'll stay hopeful and keep pushing next year. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Very much appreciated. Sarah's agency, Center for Elder Law and Justice, has been working in direct partnership with the New York State Kinship Navigator for years, where we're able to provide virtual consultations for families, which is very helpful. However, when we're talking to families, the 2 main things that we see are the need for assistance with legal permanency and financial assistance. So we're really hopeful that this Kinship Legal Network can take a step toward making sure that kinship families have affordable and helpful representation in family court, so that we can work toward one of those main goals. The next piece that we want to discuss today is our local perspective. And this is the most important thing that we're going to talk about all day. So when we talk about looking for assistance for kinship families, whether it's budgetary or, boots on the ground assistance, we're looking really at our local kinship service programs. Those that are working with families one-on-one directly to make sure that they're receiving the financial assistance that they're entitled to, make sure that they're receiving the support that they need, and make sure that they've got avenues for legal permanency. So we have 3 agencies that are speaking today, along with caregivers that they've brought that are going to be sharing their stories. And this is really, why we do the work that we do. So first of all, I want to introduce Deb Fox, who runs the Family Enrichment Network Kinship Program in Broome and Tioga County. Deb's been in Kinship Care for over 2 decades. She co-chairs the Kin Care Coalition with me. She's a wealth of knowledge, and she's provided support for kinship families in Broome and Tioga County for the past 2 decades. Over to you, Lady Deb.
Thank you, Miss Ray. Very nice words, and it's nice to be here this morning. I think it's really important that everyone that's listening in today gets to hear from our local programs and the perspective of our kinship caregivers who are in the trenches doing the real work. It's one thing to sit at the table and discuss things that we can do to improve kinship care for people. It's another thing to live that life. So as Ray said, I've been supervising a kinship care program in Broome and Tioga County for many, many years. And on average, we must probably work with between 100 to 120 kinship families every year. So we have worked with close to 2,000 kinship caregivers, and every one of those situations is messy, it's complicated, and a lot of our families end up in family court. Family court requires a lot of hearings. Parents don't turn up, circumstances change, custody gets bandied around, visitation gets changed. So it's not a one and done thing. It's not like you got your DWI, you went, you did your 5 hours course, you lost your points, and if you're a good person, you're never back there again. This is very real and very messy. Our program does work with our kinship caregivers in terms of helping them apply for the non-parent caregiver grant, which is a stipend really that every kinship caregiver in the state is eligible for. We help them navigate that Department of Social Services system. We do help them try and negotiate family court, but we do not have any options to provide legal representation for so many of our kinship caregivers who need it. We also work with them with school enrollment issues and just tons of different things that come up when you have extra children added to your family, often with not a lot of notice, and you have to rebalance your family, reorganize the energy, and try and stabilize that situation. So families need a lot of help as they really step up to do their very best to help children who are in great need. We were one of the original funded programs back in 2005 with OCFS. And it's been interesting because over the years when we were first funded, OCFS was focused on the child particularly. Then over the years, they worked out the kinship caregivers were an integral and core part of that and deserved funding for what they also did. So we've been thrilled with their development in that point of view. And I could amble on for most probably a long time, but I think it's important that you hear from one of our kinship caregivers. We have Stacey Barnard, who has offered to talk about her story in family court. And I think it really shows the importance of not only legal representation, but having a knowledgeable lawyer who understands kinship care law. It's no point sending a real estate lawyer to defend you in criminal court. It's just not going to work out. And I think Stacey's situation will show you why it's so important to have kinship lawyers or lawyers in family court who understand kinship care and the kinship laws. Stacey, are you unmuted?
I am. I can't do my video because it says the host is disabled.
Okay.
I think we're abandoning video today, Stacey. Don't worry about that. Go right ahead. Share your story with us.
All right.
So the floor is yours, Miss Stacey.
Well, she already introduced me. My name's Stacey. I'm in Tioga County, and my journey began in October of 2016. I was actually on the way to my friend's bachelorette party. She actually got a call about 2 of her nieces. I had babysat her nieces before to help her out, so I wasn't a complete stranger to them. They were at Binghamton General Hospital. The 4-year-old, Mari, had to get stitches above her right eye. CPS had been involved from the very beginning due to neglect, and the parents were using drugs. The bio mom, she's been in jail 5 times since 2016. She even served a 2-year prison sentence during that time. The court had appointed an attorney to me in November of 2016. The attorney that they appointed me, when I first met him, he looked right at me and he told me that he had no idea what he was doing. This was the first case he was ever given like this. And he didn't. He had no clue what he was doing.
So Stacey, I think it's important that we can, Stacey and I agreed to tag team, so I'm not being bossy, just so you know. One of the reasons that Mari was getting stitches was because she'd been shoved into a coffee table and it had split her eye, and that's what brought CPS to the hospital. Both Mari and Lily, who was 15 months old, were given into Stacey's care because the niece, the auntie at that time was not able to take the children. So Stacy, who had no real relationship to these children, stepped up and took in both children. Can you talk, Stacy, a little bit about Murray's issues when you first brought her home?
Mari was repeating the abuse that she had witnessed her parents doing to each other on her sister Lily. And it started to become dangerous. And she needed to be separated. They put her in the children's home for a 90-day evaluation, which was determined that she couldn't come right back with us at the time. So she was placed in a foster home away from her sister. During that time, the foster family she was with was given an attorney that was very good through CPS, knew what they were doing. Since then, Mari has been adopted.
So it's now been 7 years that Lily has been living with Stacy. And in that time, we might want to add that the bio mum has had a total of 7 children. Since Mari and Lily came to live with Stacy, bio mum had 2 other children, and all 3 of those children have since been adopted. Lily's the only child that hasn't been adopted of the last 4. And mum is pregnant and she has lost parental rights, and that child will be, once the child is born, will be going in and put up for adoption as well. So can you talk, Stacy, a little bit about what you thought was happening with Lily and the pre-adoption home situation?
Well, for 6 years, it's said in our court papers that the plan was that the child was going to be freed for adoption, and she was already in her pre-adoptive home with Stacy Bernard. The morning that we were supposed to go to court in April of 2022, CPS called me and said that we could not file, we could not go to court for termination of parental rights. They had to drop it because I didn't have the right custody. Well, I had no reason to question the custody I had, because every 6 months when we went to court for a permanency hearing, it said that child was already in her pre-adoptive home. So I had no reason to question it. They said I needed end docket custody, and then that they would refile for termination of parental rights once I got that. So my lawyer filed for end docket custody. Now, if my attorney knew this, that once I got end docket custody, that meant permanency was established. CPS would not file for termination after that because they already established permanency. If I had an attorney who knew that, he wouldn't have filed for end docket custody.
So your attorney's lack of experience has
Yes.
set up a situation where you have no ability now to adopt this, to adopt Lily. She's been living with you for 7 years. She's almost 9. And anyone in the kinship care field understands that if you have adopted a child, that child is always yours, and the parent never has any right to come back and have the child removed. Unfortunately, in this situation, Stacy is left in a situation where mum or dad can go back into family court and ask to get custody back of this child, which would be devastating for both Lily and for Stacy. As I said before, sending someone with no experience in kinship law to represent you in court is like having your real estate lawyer come and represent you in criminal court. And so we really need to make sure that our kinship caregivers are given the same sorts of protection that the bio parents were given and every other foster care parent who was involved in this family had. Stacey's been the only one that hasn't had adequate representation. I think, would you like to add something else, Stacey?
Excuse me, I didn't hear you.
Would you like to add anything else, like Lily having sickle cell anemia?
Yes, Lily has sickle cell anemia disease, which means that anytime she gets a fever, she needs to be in the hospital within 45 minutes.
And also that in the 7 years that Lily's been living with Stacy, her mother has only seen her maybe 3 or 4 times. So
yeah, nobody's seen her in the last 3 years, they have not seen her.
Exactly. Was there anything that the kinship program provided for you that was useful, Stacey?
Yeah, they helped direct me to different programs that were available in our area. With doing that, they got me connected with family enrichment here in our community, which led to me being able to get a care coordinator for Lily. And it just became a domino effect where I got in-home play therapy for her. She also gets community services in our area. So it's just led to one thing to another of different services in the community for her.
All right. Thank you, Stacey. I think we've most probably used up our time. And I'm so sorry that you're the person that has to share your experience, because this should have a happy ending. And we're kind of wondering at this point, what can Stacey do? How can she ever adopt this child?
Deb, thank you so much. And Stacy, thank you as well. You know, it's stories like these, and I'm going to echo what Deb said, that, you know, we feel badly that this is the way that we have to bring the call to action about. We don't want these things to happen. However, we know that they do, you know, and while we're very grateful that Stacy's got the support from Family Enrichment Network, which is, you know, part of our ask for these local kinship programs and services, it really does show that there is a need for viable legal representation from kinship versed attorneys. And again, we don't like the way that we hear about this, but it does call to mind that this is something that's really important so that there aren't other families that are going through things like this. Stacy, thank you again so much for sharing your story with us this morning. These are the most important things for us to hear. I'm going to turn it over at this point to Laura Weaver from the KIN program that serves Monroe County and Wayne County. She has a caregiver on with us today, Vanessa, that's going to talk a little bit more about finding affordable representation in family court. Laura, turning it over to you.
Hi, thanks, Ray. Good morning. I'm Laura Weaver. I supervise the client services and case management at Catholic Charities Family and Community Services. We work in Monroe and Wayne County. Well, similar to Deb's program, I mean, we typically will get our referrals from either the Navigator or CPS, schools sometimes, early intervention. Many places we have clients coming in. I don't have numbers like Deb, but I would say we definitely are bringing, you know, we get 2 to 3, maybe more calls a week with new clients. I think we have a kind of go in and meet clients where they're at approach. We'll meet with them, kind of determine what specific needs they're, you know, up against, or, you know, challenges they're facing, and determine what strengths they have and go from there. I think typical areas of support tend to be like Deb's program. You know, we really try to help them access any county money, you know, the temporary assistance money, daycare funds, WIC, Medicaid, anything that they might be lacking there. I think a huge thing, what are things that is something we can give to clients for longer term is support groups and events where they can kind of get together for community connection and camaraderie. I think that's something that's provided to them so that they have that lasting connection. Resources, of course, if they need clothing or food, beds, any resource thing, we try to help out and fill in gaps there. Transportation needs, advocacy for school issues, kind of anything that comes up that's a little challenging for them. But why we're here today is, you know, legal has been a real challenge for us. We like to be able to help them wherever they're struggling. And unfortunately, I really run up against a wall when they need some legal support. And I will say that many clients come to us already settled from court. Maybe it was a real straightforward case. But like you'll hear from Vanessa, some things are not straightforward or become a little uglier or complicated. And for that, we really don't have people. So, yeah, I guess I would hand it over to Vanessa to explain that better. And yeah, I don't know, Ray, if you want to take it or just have Vanessa pop in here to explain what's happened for her.
Absolutely. Let's turn it over to Vanessa. Thanks, Laura, for that overview. And just so that everybody knows, the KIN program through CCFCS is also one of the original kinship programs. So they've been providing supportive services to families at this point in time for 18 years. And they're one of the programs that we're asking for that additional $1.9 million for to fund. Over to you, Vanessa.
Hello.
Good morning. Can you share
Good
your
morning. Well, I have my two grandboys, 7 and 3, and I do understand what Laura was saying because I didn't call her multiple times asking her about a lawyer because I was in a situation where I have sole custody of my grandboys, but now my daughter wants to come back and get custody of the boys. So that left me without a lawyer. And there was a time where the court did appoint me a lawyer, and I can relate to what Stacy was saying. He either had no clue or he just didn't care. So what ended up happening, I had to end up firing him. So that just left me without counsel. And I didn't feel right going to court with no counsel. So I had called Laura, told her what was going on, and she was like, well, we trying to get funding, I'm like, well, I just feel like I'm in this by myself because I know the best interest of these boys are to be here with me because they've been here since birth, but we don't have the funding, and I think we need the funding because if they're giving counsel to the mothers for free, the fathers for free, why don't the grandparents have that same opportunity that's really doing a job and taking care of their grandchildren? So it just left me in a situation where I had to call lawyers around and everybody's about money. And I work, but I don't have $1,000 just to pay a lawyer like that. So it was just crazy. You calling around, you can't get no help. You call legal aid, they deny you of the case. So you just really alone in this. And that's why I feel like grandparents or whoever that's taking care of other people's children, we need that financial help bad because you feel like you alone. And sometimes when you're in court, I don't know what to say to the judge. I only know tell them what I'm going through,
Yeah.
so I'm not a lawyer. So I don't know what to tell them.
No, and it's very hard because I'm sure that you've realized, as you're going through it, that helpful representation is it's not easily affordable. So, as we're looking for, ways to strengthen kinship families in New York State, we want to make sure that they've got the access to those supports. And so this is something where, once again, this Kinship Legal Network funding that we're asking for would be supremely helpful because it would allow you to be able to voice in court, a way to make sure that the grandkids in your care have got that ongoing permanency and stability. Vanessa, can I ask, we're hearing about your legal struggles, and I think everybody can relate as they heard from Stacy as well, that's something that's very much a need for our kinship families. Stacy's down in the Binghamton area, you're in the Monroe County, Rochester area. This is something that goes all across New York State. Did you find any help in the local kinship programs? Not in terms of legal assistance, because unfortunately we're not attorneys, but did you find the local support services helpful?
Yeah, she gave me different agencies to talk to. Um, they gave me what I needed, at that time when I didn't have a lawyer. And she guided me into the right hands. So they were able to reach out to me and talk to me. And if I did have to go to court by myself, they gave me the tools what I needed to have in court.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's much appreciated. That's the other thing that we continue to ask for in our budget is to make sure that there are those on-site agencies that can assist kinship families, and at least be a source of support, make sure that they can get connected to the services that they need, whether they be legal, if they're in existence, or any other supportive services. Vanessa, thank you for your time this morning. We appreciate it. Again, it's stories like yours, like Stacy's, that offer the most insight to what's happening with kinship families all across New York State. So thank you. We appreciate you sharing your stories.
You're welcome.
Okay, the last agency that we have speaking today is the Hillside Center for Agencies. They're a local kinship program that serves Erie and Monroe County. We have Marty Cardona today that's going to talk to us a little bit about one of the services that Hillside provides to its kinship families. Marty, go right ahead.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you all this morning. So just to dig in further, our program addresses, as we've heard from other agencies, immediate needs, but to go a few layers deeper, it has evolved over time to provide both in-person and virtual grandparent support groups. And they've become fairly unique in that one in particular of the in-person groups, each person in the group, each of the caregivers has actually lost their adult child to death or incarceration or long-term substance abuse treatment. So they find great support in these groups because this is across all neighborhoods and demographics. It's not one particular area. And they feel lonely, as I think was mentioned earlier, and are really looking for a place where they can be honest about what's happened in their family to the degree that they wish, and also find support in communicating with other caregivers who are experiencing the same thing. So that group has been together for a while, and our program is based in trust-based relation intervention. So we're about to start a book club with that group with the book What Happened to You, which is about trauma and how it affects both the adults and the children. And as we go along with that, we've found that in addition to the immediate needs that we've already talked about here in terms of food and clothing and shelter, some of the confusion for new caregivers especially is around school. Where should this child go to school that's suddenly come into my home? How do I approach the school? Do I have the right documentation to enter the child in school? Or in the case of informal caregivers, how do I communicate with school if the parent is still the person on the registration, as the legal guardian for the child? So we do try to help with all of that. And in doing that, I've developed a close relationship with many of our school districts here in the Monroe County area, especially. So that has led to my doing staff development for school staff in trauma and how it affects children, as well as the caregivers, but especially the children, because these are the teachers, and what they might see in the classroom in terms of behavior and what lies underneath those behaviors. That has grown steadily in popularity. It's typically an hour session that I do with staff either before or after school. And then oftentimes we will establish a grandparent support group right at the school so that the grandparents truly feel like they belong, because that's another thing that they'll say is, I don't know how to set up play dates for these, the child I'm caring for, because all the parents are so young. So it's really just helping them to feel comfortable with the local school where the child attends and to help the school understand what the needs are, particularly for the children, but also for the caregiver feeling part of that school community.
Thank you so much, Marty. Much appreciated. Again, this is an overview of one of the local kinship service programs for what they can provide for families. And as you can tell, as we've heard from Laura, from Deb, from Marty, there's quite a flavor of things that they can provide to families. But at the end of it, it's all supportive services so that these families can achieve stability and permanency for the kids in their care, which is really the overall goal of the kinship system of care, the kinship network that's got the Kinship Navigator and the local programs. We do have one more addition on the line today. Jennifer Thurston from Erie County, who works for Gateway Longview, would like to speak a few words about their program and as a kinship caregiver. Jennifer, over to you.
Good morning. Thank you, everyone. So as I said, my name is Jenny Thurston. I am a home finder at Gateway Longview. We primarily work with families in Erie County, but some of the other surrounding counties as well. And my role is to train, support, coach potential foster parents and after certification and placement of a child. So in our program, what we have been seeing is because of, the lack of funding and availability in kin-specific services, is we're seeing an increase in these families being referred to foster care certification. And so I had a caregiver who was going to speak. Unfortunately, she had a recent surgery, and I spoke with her this morning. She is not really feeling up to speaking, but we went over her points, and if it's okay with everybody, I will share her story on her behalf. So Miss Annette is currently the 1017 caregiver. She's in the process of certification. She was one of our families who was referred to us. She says she is from Buffalo, and she has provided informal kinship for 5 of her grandchildren over the past 20 years. The reason she is currently seeking certification is because she is caring for her 1.5-year-old twins, twin grandchildren, Legend and Legacy. They are the younger siblings of the grandchildren she raised previously. So the first grandbaby that she raised is currently 20 years old, and now she's going on her 3rd round of kiddos from her daughter, who is struggling, as Miss Annette put it. I said, what should we say is the reason? And she said her drinking. The children's father is not in the picture, has not signed any of the acknowledgement for paternities, so there's really no avenue to go down for that route. So it really is Miss Annette. The challenges that she has described when caring for these kiddos, the first thing that she said, especially when she was caring for the older ones, is childcare, because she had to work. And so that financial burden of finding available childcare and being able to work as well, transportation to appointments and things like that. The biggest struggles that she really has been speaking to me a lot about is the emotional relationship with her daughter, feeling like she needed to protect her own grandchildren from her daughter. She expresses that she really wants her daughter to be well, but she has been the one to make hotline calls in order to protect these children after witnessing some behaviors on her daughter's behalf. So I talked to her a little bit about, how should we talk about how kinship has helped you so far, as we are waiting for the children to be ordered into foster care from her 1017 status, which would make her their certified kinship foster parent. When she was referred to our services, I really made sure to sit down with Miss Annette and cover all of her options as a kinship caregiver to make sure that she was making the right choice for her family. And that is one of the biggest things that she had pointed out, was that she had no idea of the options for her financially, for permanency. And so after speaking with her and really working with her, she had decided that foster care certification was the best option for her. She is looking forward to the help with finances. She's looking forward to being able to be connected with caregiver supports and attend our support groups and trainings and parenting trainings. She is looking very excited for help with managing visitation. This is one of the biggest barriers in her being able to develop a supportive relationship for her own daughter, as she is being held responsible for upholding court orders for visitation. So she has to tell her daughter, it's time for you to go. And sometimes that doesn't go over well. One of the main reasons that she is pursuing foster care, as many of our speakers have pointed out today, is that she would have the ability to have legal representation as a kinship foster parent. She's hopeful that her daughter will recover. But this option gives her, but this route gives her the option of adopting these grandchildren the if their mother are if their mother is unable to be reunited with the children. So in summation, I really just think that Annette's case kind of points to the need for the funding and availability for these services so that we are not funneling families into foster care certification, and increasing, DSS and family court involvement when it's not really necessary. And these families that come in and that are looking for the support that's not really readily available, it's difficult for them to keep up with some of the foster care regulations. And additionally, as a program, our foster care agency this is new for us. This increase in New York State, I think it went. Somebody might know better than I do. It went from 17% to 35% of foster care cases being kinship caregivers. So we are collaborating with our intensive program to learn a lot more about what they have done to support their caregivers and connect our kin with other resources as well. So thank you for letting me share on behalf of Annette.
Jennifer, thank you so much. It's wonderful to hear your perspective as well as Annette's as well. Very much appreciated for everybody that spoke today on local perspective, regarding supportive services from the local kinship programs, regarding issues with family court, with kinship attorneys. Really a wonderful overview of what kinship care is looking like across New York State, what we're seeing, what caregivers are going through, and what the local programs are trying to accomplish. At this point in time, I'm going to turn it over to Colleen Bryan, who works for the New York State Kinship Navigator as our publicity person and our legislative guru, to talk about next steps for those on the call to figure out how you can help best support kinship families and the kinship programs in our 2024 ask. Over to you, Colleen.
Hi, everybody. First of all, thank you to all of you for sharing your stories and for the enormous amount of work that you do in our communities. It's really the kinship caregivers and their, the agencies that support them that are really helping kids grow up strong and healthy in mind and body, and it's so very important. So thank you all for all you do. First, before we talk to our advocates who are on the Zoom, I really want to address the legislators and their staffers who are on this Zoom, because there are a few tools that we have that I hope that you are aware of. And if you're not, I hope you'll reach out and find out some more information about them. First of all, the Kinship Navigator has a YouTube channel where we have, as of today, 51 videos on there that range in everything from how caregivers can get financial assistance to what are some of their legal options to, a 10-minute video on how to fill out the paperwork for a non-parent grant. And then we also have a number of videos from our Lunch and Learn series, which is a program that we do every third Thursday of the month. So our next one is Thursday, March 21st. This month we have CHAMPS, which is a behavioral health and substance abuse non-governmental organization that helps caregivers and basically folks throughout New York State. So we have recordings of all of the Lunch and Learn series that we've done over the last 3 years. We started during the pandemic, but as it turns out, it's a pretty convenient way for people to get information, and we record all of them. So if you can't catch it in real time on the third Thursday at noon, you can go back to our YouTube channel and review any of these recordings. The third thing that we want to talk about, the second thing we want to talk about is, in addition to the YouTube channel, I guess it is a third thing, and in addition to the Lunch and Learns, is our permission to contact form. A lot of times when families are in crisis, it can be overwhelming and it's really difficult for people to reach out and get the help they need. So if you go to the Kinship Navigator website at nysnavigator.org and just look for a permission to contact form, you can download that, you can print it out, you can keep it in a folder in your office, you can send it to your constituents so that will trigger someone from the Kinship system of care to reach out to the family in crisis rather than having them try to figure out when they can fit in a phone call. So other than that, the last thing that I wanted to talk about was, I can't remember now. It was, well, let me move right over to what advocates on the line can do. You know, there are a number of elected officials on the Zoom right now, but for those of you who wish to reach out and let your assembly member or senator know about the good work you're doing in your community, it's really important, especially now as they're negotiating the budget, to let them know about the important work that you're doing and how you really provide these supports in the community. You can call, you can visit, you can send an email. Oh, that was, speaking of email, that was the third thing that I wanted to bring up to our legislators. We have a blurb that you can use. You can post it on social media, you can use it in your newsletters, you can use it in the emails that you send to your constituents. It's just a very brief description of the Kinship Navigator, the services that we provide throughout the state. Our warm line, which is 877-454-6463, which is staffed from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. if people have questions. So I urge you to reach out for us if there's any further information that we can provide that you can share with your constituents. And then all the advocates on the call, I do urge them to share your stories with our legislators, because they're making difficult decisions right now about what gets funded in New York State, and it's really important for them to know the important and meaningful work that you're doing in our communities. And I think that's it.
Colleen, thank you so much. Thank you for everybody for speaking today. We appreciate the overview from both service providers, from caregivers, from our assembly members, for everybody that's joined us on this call today. Again, you're getting a very real look at what Kinship Care looks like across New York State. Mostly from a lot of program people. So, you know, it might not always be perfectly stated, but we are the folks that are on the ground doing the work. We're the ones that are trying to best assist these families. And as Colleen rightly said, if you have any follow-up questions, if you would like more information, please feel free to reach out. You know, for our legislators on the call, we are humbly asking for dollars to make this work continue to happen, so that we can assist caregivers like Vanessa, caregivers like Stacy, that are really looking to provide the stability and permanency for kids that are in kinship care. So thank you very much for your time. You will be hearing from us on a local level. And if you've got interest as a caregiver or a professional joining our efforts, please feel free to reach out directly. We will do a follow-up with today's call for those that attended with contact information and slides so that you can feel free to reach out. But www.nysnavigator.org. As Colleen said, our phone number 877-454-6463. Please feel free to reach out at any point in time. We will get you connected with the Kin Care Coalition, with your local kinship supports, and make sure that you or the families that you're serving are able to be connected to the services that they are in need for. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. We appreciate you joining us today.